we'll get started. I'm actually teaching another online class right after this, so even in quarantine, life is still happening. So much welcome to everyone. I'm Hunt Parr, and I'm one of the yoga teachers at Chelsea Piers Fitness in Brooklyn. And I teach 2 restorative classes and 2 vinyasa classes there a week. It's so nice to have all of you separately together to do some restorative yoga today. And just in case you popped in with us just now, a couple blankets, a couple pillows, yoga blocks, bolster, whatever you got at home. I know folks probably don't have a full prop set like we're so lucky and privileged to have at the club, so we'll make do. If you have access to a wall that you could easily use, that would be helpful. And if not, I'll show you how to just modify using a chair or a couch. So let me just talk a little bit here. Restorative yoga is one of the practices I'm so passionate about. It's so helpful in just managing the everyday stress of New York City and sort of the demands that life puts on us, or wherever you are, right? Whatever demands the world comes up with. And it's helping us drop from our kind of keyed up active mind, our fight and flight response, into our parasympathetic nervous system, or rest and digest. So what I thought for today in this 45-50 minutes is that I'm just gonna show you some of my favorite practices that I do to help manage my own stress and anxiety as I feel it come up. And then I hope you'll take them and practice them daily or whenever you can. And I'll give you how you can get in touch with me after this if you have questions and you want me to help you out. And then if you are in New York City, please come take my class at Chelsea Piers. It's a very special place to practice restorative yoga. Put on any clothing that you would like so you're warm, right? We're gonna be laying down most of the time. And if you wanna dim the lights, make it cozy for yourself, you really won't need to see me more than the first 1 or 2 minutes. I'll show you how to set up the postures, and then I'll just talk you through some guided relaxation. So let's just take 1 minute to get situated. I'm gonna shift back to my yoga mat, and we're gonna begin with some guided meditation and a little bit of breath work. And welcome to my living room. And please just make sure you're muted, everyone, or else it pulls the audio feed and the video feed for me. If you're just joining us, welcome. So I'm just gonna sit up on top of a folded blanket. Some folks might need something a little bit higher. You could also sit up on a pillow or a bolster if you have one. Just cross one shin in front of the other. You can put a little flexion in your feet, and then bring your hands up on tops of your thigh bones. So there's a little natural bend in the elbows. You can feel the weight of your pelvis dropping down. Let's take a second to settle. Something really interesting that's been happening is that since most of us are home more than we are normally, there's a sense of having to fill every moment with something. So here's a chance just to be spacious. And you can start by just giving yourself permission to do nothing. So feeling the weight of the pelvis dropping down, take a little mental journey up the natural curvatures of the spine. You can release your chin slightly forward, so the back of the neck is long. And when you're ready, you can close your eyes. You don't need to see me. And let's just sit together quietly for a moment. Because a lot of us are in our home spaces, just allow your senses to be open for a moment. We say this in the club all the time, right? We'll hear the subway rumble. There might be a crashing sound from a weight. So perhaps at home you'll hear your children or your partner or the pipes. And it's okay, right? Part of yoga practice is working with the world every day and meeting it there. Let's start by just noticing what somatic or body experience we're having. So what does it feel like to be in your body right now? You feel hot or cold, sleepy, hungry, tired, exhilarated? Is there pain or sensation? A lot of us are working with injuries, old and new. So whatever things are coming up, just start by noticing them. One of the interesting things about having a body is that it's different every day because you're different every day. And the second quality we can touch into is just how is the breath moving? Sunday afternoon, does it feel easy to breathe? Is it spacious? Perhaps there's some areas that are constricted, tight. So just the act of bringing awareness to the breath will help with that process of space creation and ventilation. You can think of the breath sort of like a massage from the inside. And just by creating breath awareness, you find more space for more breath to come in. And then finally, just check in with your attention. So what's on your mind now? And it's interesting right now because we're getting sort of hit with new information all the time, every moment. A new headline, a new tweet. So noticing if you're hooked into any of those narratives and what sort of qualities that comes up. And in a lot of contemplative traditions, they use the image of your breath is a horse and your mind is the rider. So we're inviting the breath to move in a way that's not dramatic and forced, but it's also not precious. I think the word is just steady. And by breathing in a steady but fully embodied way, the mind follows. So we'll sit together for just a few more moments. You can really allow your mind to just rest on the feeling of the breath, wherever it's the strongest in the body, so maybe in your belly or in the torso and chest or nostrils. And sit with one breath at a time. And then just acknowledge or notice when your mind darts away. I think one of the biggest things folks come to me for meditation instruction and they say, I want to stop thinking. And it's good to remember that as long as you're alive, you're going to be thinking. So we're not trying to stop our thoughts, but we can notice them as they move and then come back to the breath, use it as home base and start over. So it's this process of placing our attention, letting it float away, and then coming back. Think of it sort of like a bicep curl for your brain. So this is sort of the most grassroots form of mindfulness practice. Mindfulness meaning consciously placing the mind. It's okay if it feels hard to sit still. It's the practice itself. Sometimes using a little technique called thought labeling can help. You notice your mind darts away and go, oh, I'm thinking, and then very gently come back to your breath. You can just think to yourself, thinking, and start over. Sometimes you'll be lost in thought for a long time before you realize that you're there. Cutting through the energy of it with a word or a label can be helpful. Just begin to let that practice go. We'll do it a little bit at the end as well. It's called shamatha, or mindfulness meditation. And we started with a little bit of awareness practice, which I like to call the 3-part check-in. And keep your eyes closed for a moment. And if it's appropriate for you and your practice to set an intention or a dedication for the time you're spending on the mat, or if you want to Om, you're welcome to do that. It's often just enough to sit quietly and dedicate the work to taking care of yourself. Open your eyes, and lift your gaze, and just feel the space and the energy of the room around you after sitting for a few minutes. So I'll invite everyone to join me in just a teeny little bit of movement here, just to kind of feel our body, and then we're going to lay down. It's everything you can do right from your seat. Let's just take a breath in, everyone. Sweep your arms out and overhead. Just really slow, it's not fast. Exhale, arms float down. Just think of it like a breath exercise. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, arms down. One more. Inhale, arms up. And exhale, arms down. We're going to side bend. Inhale, arms reach up. And as you exhale, side bend over to the right. Just bring your right hand down to the floor slowly. Left arm alongside the ear. Just really slow, easy lateral stretch. I'm trying to keep both sides of my hips heavy on the floor and reach long with that top arm. And come all the way back up on the in-breath. And as you exhale, side bend to the left. So just let this be slow and stretchy, right? We're already trying to down-regulate our nervous system a little bit. Come all the way back up on the breath in, everyone. Very, very simple twist. We're just going to turn the spine to the right. You can bring your left hand to your thigh and your right hand to the floor behind you. Or if you can't reach, just put it on your lower back. Sit up nice and tall so there's a sense of length. And turn the spine slowly, and you can look over the back shoulder. A few slow breaths here in the twist. Release from the twist, everyone. Reach your arms all the way back up. And slow twist over to the left. Turn the spine. Really, really gentle. So you inhale, lengthen, and lift. Exhale, twist a little deeper. Inhale back to the center, arms lift up. We're going to do a little back bend, everyone. Take your hands behind you and interlace your fingers together behind your back. You might have to bend your elbows a little bit to do that. Roll the shoulder blades in towards each other and just lift your sternum, your breastbone up slightly, especially if you've been spending a lot more time hunched over your screens or your phone, right? Getting that nice quality of an open heart space so you can breathe all the way up to the top of the collarbones. Good, everyone. Release the hands. Last action here, really, really easy forward fold. Just maybe bring your fingertips down to the floor. That might be where you go. Some folks might crawl out a little bit further and drop down to their forearms. And just drop the head at the bottom. Let the neck hang. And I like to rock just a little bit side to side. So you kind of feel some of the hip, the gluteal muscle. And then roll yourself back up slowly. And we're just gonna change the leg that's in front. So you can switch and bring your other shin forward, sit up nice and tall, and then one more time, walk forward. You can bend your elbows, drop your head and your neck. And if you'd like to rock a little side to side, and rock yourself back up. Okay, just place your hands back on your thighs for a second. You can kind of feel the effects of those movements in the body. And we're gonna go ahead and set up our first restorative posture, everyone. This one is probably one of my favorites. It's called Supine Cobbler's Pose. And I'll show you a couple different ways to set it up, just depending on what props you have at home. And then we're gonna lay here together for a while. So the first one, everyone, is to get one of your blankets or your towel and open it up at least this big. And you're just gonna roll it up into a cylinder. So you have a neatly rolled up blanket about that big. Right? If you have yoga blocks, they can also be used here. I'll show you both. So we're doing very, very simple setup. A pillow or a second blanket for the back of your head. Okay. So the feet are going to press together, everyone, and the knees are going to open out to the side, like that. You're going to take the blanket that you rolled up and place it over the tops of your feet. And then grab the outer edges and pull it under your thighs. Right, so I'll show from the side. I put the blanket over the tops of my feet. My knees are falling open. I'm gonna pull it in tightly. And then you can hold on to the edges and that'll help you roll down onto your back body. You can adjust that blanket behind your head, everyone, so that the neck and the throat are open. Hands drop down to the sides. Shoulders can roll in towards each other, palms facing up. You want to give yourself a nice good tuck in so you really don't feel like you're muscling this in the hip or the legs. Nice heavy arms. If you feel this in your lower back at all, right, draw the tailbone down, lift the front of the pelvis up, and then allow yourself to drop into the asana, the posture. If you have blocks, you can also take blocks under your knees. If you don't have blocks, you can use pillows. I saw someone yesterday use a paper towel in the plastic right underneath their thigh bones. If you have an additional blanket and you would like to cover yourself, you're welcome to. Shoulders can come a little bit together, palms drop up. Just want to assess that the head and the neck feel soft and supported. And then when you're ready, you can drop your eyes closed. So laying here in supine cobbler's pose, you can first just start by noticing the quality of breath. I like to scan through my body and see if there's any initial sensations. If it feels like too much of a hip opening practice, then you can adjust the height of the blocks or tuck the blanket in more. Just check in with the weight of the arms and the legs. All the structures of the face, your eyes, your teeth, your tongue, and your jaw. You can begin to cultivate a quality of feeling heavy. And so dropping down into the support of the ground. So just like in our meditation practice, sometimes when we stop moving, our mind revs up, right? It engages. So in restorative yoga, as we're resting here, we have two things that we can use. We just come to the sensation or the somatic experience in the body. Or we can drop back into the rhythm of our breathing to help ground us there. So let's stay like this for a few minutes. I'm just going to hold the space here and I'll talk you out of it in just a little while. Begin to deepen your breathing. See if you can really just feel the rise and fall of the belly, rib cage, and the chest. And here, everyone, we want to transition really slowly. So you can bring your hands down outside of your knees and just slowly close your knees together. So your feet step onto the floor, and you can step them about as wide as your pelvis. Then we'll roll over to the right hand side and come into a little fetal position. Nothing fancy, we're just curling over. Take a couple breaths here. And you want to keep your head super heavy. Push your hands down into the floor and roll yourself up. Let your head be the last thing to come up. And you can just sit for a second and observe the effects of that pretty large opening of the hips for a few minutes. So it's really subtle work, but can have profound effects. Okay. And then come on back into this space, everyone. So that's one of my favorite hip opening practices. If you're doing this on your own, you can hold that for 10 minutes, even longer, 15 minutes. It can be quite wonderful. We're just doing between 4 and 6 minutes. Second restorative posture is supported fish pose. We're going to use the rolled up blanket again, everyone, or towel. So you can grab it here and just set it down on the floor or mat behind you, and you want to leave some space for your head. So I'm going to take this second blanket and put it down here. So I have enough room here for my shoulders. This is a very, very simple setup. And I'm just going to step my arms over the blanket, scooch forward. And you see where that rolled up blanket is landing, everyone? Here's my sternum, my breastbone, right? And my collarbones are here. So it's right underneath the back of my heart. Do you see how that's starting to create a back bend? It's a very gentle back bending practice. You want your arms to extend out to the side, and then you can roll the shoulder blades in towards each other and let the chin drop back away from the chest. You can put another blanket behind your head. If you feel like you want more back bend, right, like you have more range of motion there, you can roll the blanket up more. If it's too much, you can unroll it a little bit. This is a great place to lift your hips off the floor, draw your tailbone under so the lower back feels really long. Then I like to extend my legs out long and just let them fall open into their natural rotation. It takes the body a couple moments to settle into these practices, into these postures. So for a moment, it'll feel like there's a blanket digging into your spine, right? And you have to let the musculature of the back body really soften around the blanket roll. A lot of us do practices where we learn how to train our abdominal muscles and pull them in tightly. But right now, I encourage you to let the lower belly really soften. So you can feel the range of motion of the diaphragm, kind of constant pulsation of the rib cage and the lungs, helping with that process of respiration. So once you settle into your supported or restorative fish, I like to really feel weight in my arms and legs again. Inviting a sense of being able to let go and not hold on. The human skull is 8 to 10 pounds, so just make sure the head and the neck are comfortable. The throat feels open. And on each exhalation, see if you can cultivate a nice quality of weight. Drop really into the support of the props. And let's commit to stay here for a little while. Again, as the body settles into stillness, the mind might engage. So using both breath and somatic or body experience to help us. As we said at the beginning, we're not trying to stop thinking. Thinking is useful, but we can definitely work with it, right? There's this quality of workability to whatever situation comes up. Let's stay here together in fish pose for a few minutes. I'll hold the space again and talk us out of it. Begin to lengthen the breath. Just feel some of the effects from that back bend in the spine. And then same slow transition, everyone. Knees can bend Feet can step up onto the floor. The bottoms of the feet, just connect with the mat for a second. We'll roll over to the right-hand side. You can just kind of let that blanket tuck underneath the armpit, left hand on the ground. We'll keep a nice heavy head. Roll yourself off the top support and just sit for a moment. And it's nice to kind of observe how that fish practice really helps to create a sense of open heart or uplifted posture. It's another practice you could hold for 5 to 10 minutes. And then let's move on to the next one, everyone. So we're going to take our legs up the wall. If you have a wall space close by, that would be the best. If you don't, you can grab a chair or use your couch or a bed. I'll show you the full practice, and then if you don't have a wall close by, how you can modify it. You just sit up sideways next to a wall, everyone, so your hips are snugged up. And then you just do a little swing around so that your legs go up the wall. You might need a little micro bend in your knees, just depending on if there's hamstring tightness or not. And I really like to put a folded blanket behind my head. So there's a nice sense of open throat and chest here. If you have a second blanket, this is a really wonderful way to kind of create a little tent. You just throw it over your feet and let the whole thing cascade down over you. So I call it the blanket tent. You tuck yourself in. It's my favorite way to go camping. So you're nice and cozy with the legs up the wall. If you don't have a wall, easy, everyone, you can also just put a chair in front of you or your bed or whatever that is a little bit elevated. Lay down on your back and just put your feet over the chair so that your knees are bent at 90 degrees. And you get a very similar kind of practice here, right? So just imagine that my shins were resting on the chair, my knees were bent, so I could really drop down. You want to try to keep your lower back on the floor if possible. You can also cover yourself here with the blanket and make yourself cozy. Okay. So setting up for legs up the wall practice for a few minutes, or if you don't have a wall, which would probably be common for a lot of New York apartments, you can put your legs over a chair or your couch or your bed. And again, once you get set up, you don't really need to see me. You can close your eyes. One of the things I love about legs up the wall is that both your torso and your legs are fully supported. And you can really check in with the weight of the arms and the legs. The back of the skull dropping into the floor. And check and see if you're gripping in your quads. Notice the quality of your breathing here. Invite the lower back and pelvis to feel heavy on the ground. So observe or check in with your mind, what comes up as you're laying here. Begin to deepen your breathing. To get out of this, you can just let your knees slowly bend. Drag your heels down the wall. Get a nice little kind of crease in the hips. Lower back drops down into the floor. And then roll over to your right hand side, same transition we've been doing. And find a little fetal position. Push down into your hands and come on up to sit. You can sit on a folded blanket or a block or a bolster. And let's finish everyone with a few more minutes of that mindfulness practice. So we moved from some meditation to a series called The 4 Movements of the Spine, 3 of my favorite restorative postures for helping kind of down-regulate the nervous system. And let's just sit together and feel the effects of our practice. Sometimes just a little bit of restorative yoga can be very profound. Again, just dropping into your good seat, feeling both sides of the pelvis heavy. You can take a mental journey up the natural curvatures of the spine. Let's feel your shoulders in relationship to the ears. Slight release of the chin forward. You can either close your eyes or lower your gaze. And tune into the natural rhythm of your breath. So it's not a yoga breath, it's just breathing through the nostrils. Nothing fancy. Allow your mind to come to rest on each breath as it moves through the tip of the nose. Notice your mind wanders away towards wherever it goes. You cut through that momentum of thought. Come back to your breath and practice beginning again, which is an excellent theme to practice on this Sunday. Never too late to take a fresh start. So let's sit in this mindfulness practice for just a few moments. And slowly let that practice go. Just feeling your body and your breath and your mind in space. And if you would like to acknowledge any initial dedication, affirmation, or if you chanted, you can do that now. Or you can just dedicate the last 45 minutes to taking care of yourself as a continued process. I like to call it self-caring versus self-care because it's active and ongoing. If you would like to join me in a bow, which is just offering head and heart together, you can inhale, lengthen the spine, sit up. And as you exhale, a little bow forward. And back up. Okay. So thank you, everyone. So nice to practice with all of you separately together. And thank you so much to Chelsea Piers for supporting all these wonderful online practices and classes. If you have any questions, here is where you can find me on Instagram. And feel free to send me a direct message. I will be happy to respond. And I really hope that was of some service and useful to everyone. If you can keep doing that, it's an active restorative practice, if that makes sense, right? So just a little bit every day. Maybe you lay with your legs up the wall, or you sit and do a little bit of meditation, or you can take a whole hour and actually really give yourself time to hold it for 10 minutes. It really, really is so helpful. I do some restorative yoga almost every day. So I'll stay on for just a second. I'm actually teaching my own class in 10 minutes. So I have to go in just a moment, but I hope that was helpful, and maybe we'll do it again. And I hope you're all taking good care of yourself, adequate rest, And I know there's going to be a whole lot more amazing classes through Chelsea Piers, so keep checking out all the amazing stuff that they've been presenting for folks. It's incredible teachers.